Hey, welcome to Next Level Method Podcast. I'm Richard Ryerson.
And I'm Matt Lilly.
And we're here to help you take your life to the next level. Let's get started. And what an amazing podcast.
Unexpectedly amazing.
Unexpectedly. I didn't know what to expect.
I didn't either. And it was way different than I thought we were going to get into.
Me too.
On the podcast. I was actually very impressed by these guys.
So Dan Oblinger
Yeah.
Lives here locally.
Yeah.
Right? And his stepbrother, Allan Tsang.
Yeah.
They came on the show. And again, I went into this with fresh mind. I did read Dan's book, but Dan is a hostage negotiator.
Mm-hmm.
He's worked here with our local police department here. He's the author of 2 books, Life or Death Listening, a hostage negotiator's how-to guide on mastering the essential communication skill, and the 28 laws of listening, best practices for the master listener. And he coaches and consults with his stepbrother. Mm-hmm. And Allan has trained thousands of business owners and professionals to negotiate more effectively. His real-world experience and expertise can be adapted to virtually any industry or profession. Born in Hong Kong, raised in Africa, like he told us.
Yeah.
Moved to the United States.
Right.
And he's worked in Boston, New York, Atlanta, before settling in Virginia as a business coach and partnering with his stepbrother Dan.
Yeah.
And they were amazing. I just got so much value out of that conversation.
Yeah, I did too. Like I said, it was unexpected. I didn't realize it was going to be quite so lively. We ran out of time before we ran out of topics, for sure.
Yeah, we got to have them
We
back.
kind of went through kind of more of a business perspective, but yeah, there's a whole relationship side, I think, when we have them back that we'll go through too. But yeah, just very, like I said, it was a very lively conversation today.
Well, like you and the term negotiation, I think you and I both kind of the same feeling. It kind of had this kind of negative connotation. But what the aha moment for me was how they explained it, like their purpose and what they mean by negotiation is their goal of it is to create strong agreements so we can have healthy relationships. And that I thought was a fresh way to look at it. And that's what we dove into, right? I think that's what we spent most of the time talking about.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It was really good insights about how, you didn't have to have, one of the things was talk about trust, right? Trust isn't necessarily a component of a strong agreement, which was the opposite of what we would have thought coming into that conversation.
Well, yeah, and I was even thinking, well, this is going to be my goal, is to build trust. And they kind of like, no. Yeah. You enter into every relationship without trusting the other person.
Right.
You don't, and then they gave the examples of on the global scales, like, we don't trust China, but we know negotiations with them.
Do billions of dollars worth of trade.
Pakistan, India don't trust each other, but they have to negotiate. So that's a great point. Anyway, so much value in this conversation. Anything else you want to add or aha moments before we steer into the conversation?
I just think there was a ton of value here. Again, I wouldn't have expected, I thought we were going in talking kind of about negotiation and I was like, but once we got into the topic, it's really about effective relationship communication, right? I mean, which is everything in the world. I mean, really, it comes down to communication. And so that for our listeners today, don't confuse that this is about negotiating. It's really about effective communication across a lot of different areas of your life. So, yeah.
And I think there's so much value in here. If anything, hopefully it'll be a spark to learn more. That's why we got to have him back. I know my interest is piqued. I need to. I realized there's so much more to learn. It's a lifelong learning process, right?
Definitely.
So anyway, let's get on with this conversation with Dan Oblinger, his stepbrother Allan Tsang, and make sure you check out nextlevelmethod.com to learn more about our products, our services, and certainly you can check out the show notes here at nextlevelmethod.com on this specific episode where they have some great bonus items, right?
Yep. They had that's right. They had a bonus item there at the end. You got to listen.
To the end,
or fast forward it either way. But at the end, it was some powerful stuff.
A huge bonus that no other guest has offered.
Yeah.
So make sure you stay tuned and get their free gifts. All right, on with the conversation with Dan and Allan here on Next Level Method. Allan and Dan, welcome to the show. So nice to meet both of you.
Same here.
Yeah, we're blessed to be here.
Yeah. I was reading your book last night, Dan, on life or death listening, and that talk,
we got the shameless plug out of the way.
We got the shameless plug out of the way.
Right there. Check that box.
But it's really good. I mean, I think, from as a leadership junkie myself, and in fact, I was just working with a client over the weekend, my mastermind group. We were talking about this very topic, about the power of active listening, and this client I'm working with now. In fact, I was just telling him, I said, look, man, you've got to start listening more and talking less and asking great questions. And I don't know, there's so much packed into that. But anyway, just congratulations on the book.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
Well, so where do we want to dive in? There's so much to talk about, but I think where I would like to, at least from an entertainment perspective, is like Dan, talking about your background as a negotiator, hostage negotiator, working with the police department. I'd like to hear about that kind of that first story where it kind of maybe triggered this whole process, even led to us where we are today. I mean, at some point you've had to, I guess, have your first incidents or your first maybe even your jumper. I think even in your book, was that person that was the woman that was hanging off the ledge in the parking garage? Was that your first incident?
That was my first negotiation, crisis negotiation to that extent. We're negotiating all the time.
Right.
But that was the first one where it was very obvious I was not equipped and was not prepared, and that the stakes were high enough that I wish I had.
So that kind of started the catalyst of all this, right? I mean, you're looking back.
Yeah, that was my negotiation journey's inception. Like, not a lot of people have that. It's a gift, right? To know that's where it started, and I think that's really prescient what you just said. Like, truly, that was the beginning, and currently this is, I won't say the end, but this is the progression. Right here on the podcast, recording it with my stepbrother Alan here. And where it goes, that's the beauty of it. Where it goes, we don't know.
You don't know.
It's not over
right?
yet.
Yeah.
And lots of people have joined me on the journey. Some are still with me. Some go their own way at some point, and that's cool. I've trained a lot of other now police and hostage and crisis negotiators. Now with Alan, I get to work with professionals in all kinds of different industries. But I know where it began. I think I say it's a gift. Some people don't get the gift. Some people are muddling through, and this is where I might bring Alan in. We deal with a lot of really frustrated leaders.
Right.
And when I say leaders, by virtue of the authority in their organization, they have to be leaders. Like, that's their job now. And they get really frustrated because they don't realize that maybe what's missing, and at least one thing that's missing in their leadership skill set, is the ability to negotiate strong agreements.
Yeah, that's the key. I mean, it is frustrating because no one teaches us how to do it. I mean, I think when you look at leadership in general, there's no. I think I can sit there and say, "Hey, I want to be a great leader," and I think I know what it means. I find that over time, when I'm asking people, "What does leadership even mean?" It's difficult to define for a lot of people, right? They start saying some of the obvious things, and I tell you, one thing that they don't talk about is negotiation, right?
Well, and when I think leaders, I mean, really, I even expand that out as I was. Listening to some of your material earlier today, what resonated with me was really we're talking about effective communication. I mean, negotiation, when I used to think of negotiation as basically more of the I win, you lose, like
exactly.
I'm beating you at something, I'm negotiating, so I'm winning. But when I'm listening to you earlier today, the two of you speak on a show, it was like, okay, wait a second. That's not what negotiation is. At least now I'm looking at it much differently even than I did an hour ago. It was like, wow, negotiation's more about how do you become an effective listener, effective communication. But I guess how are you guys defining negotiation? Because I think for me, there's confusion and was confusion around what negotiation. I almost viewed, and I've been in business and sales a long time, I almost viewed negotiation as a negative thing.
Yeah, it does have a negative connotation.
Yeah, like, hey, let's negotiate, and all of a sudden it's like my bristles come up, and I'm kind of like, okay, we're ready to fight now, right? I mean, let's get in the ring.
How come?
I think it's
why do we have a negative physiological reaction?
I think it's kind of back to kind of the car sales analogy or something. When you grow, you go in and you're negotiating for a car, and you always feel dirty or kind of just like you lost something in that negotiation. No matter if you win or not, you don't really know. I think for me, there's just this negative connotation around negotiation.
Because I think to that point, I think it's because there's this perception of we're holding stuff close to our chest. We're not revealing everything. We're not being authentic. We're lacking of trust, right? And it seems like what you guys are excelling at is harnessing those emotions to build that trust, right? And I think that's what I didn't realize that negotiation. I think that's what you guys are trying to say. What are you
actually trying to say?
What are we trying to say? Alan will handle it. He's
tackle that a little bit. So I'm gonna throw people for a loop. They may shut down this podcast right now. When they start we actually don't need trust. And let me back up a little bit. U.S. is negotiating with China all the time.
Right.
We don't trust them. They don't trust us. But we still do billions and billions of dollars worth of business. Pakistan and India, they don't trust each other, but they still do business. Trust is not necessary to negotiate, but it's great when we have it because things just move a little bit faster. Okay? A lot of times when I'm brought into an organization, my client and their counterparty, not only do they not have trust, there's distrust.
Right.
They do not even want to talk to my client.
Right.
But can we negotiate? Yes, we can. So I need to just dispel that myth out there.
That's
Second
interesting.
of all, is that I think a lot of people think we negotiate when things fail. A lot of salespeople think we only negotiate when the sales has failed to move forward, and
Right.
now we have to haggle.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
So it goes back to what Richard said earlier. So we need to really have a good working definition of what negotiation is that guides us in what we do and what not to do. With a weak definition, negotiation becomes haggling or bargaining. But to us, to Dan and I, it is the non-violent form of communication between two or more parties that brings about agreement with each party having the power of consent. Basically the power to say no to each other.
And that's
If
the
you
big
don't have
piece.
that, if you don't have the power to say no to the other party, then you are in a dictation relationship, dictatorial relationship. You don't have a negotiation relationship. All right.
And that's the
So
key.
that's a working,
And that's the key because strong agreement's what we're going for. So I like what you. So what I'm learning here is that going into this negotiation, it's not about building trust. It's about building a strong agreement, right? And the strong agreement is where the
Right.
real power and the beauty is.
And the trust comes more from the strong agreement
Got
than
it.
strong agreements come from trust.
Yeah.
And so I just want to challenge the listeners out there. Look, every relationship you ever had began with a lack of trust.
Right.
And in fact, many of you probably, I'm going to guess, it won't be 100%, but I bet a lot of them out there are nodding because they're thinking of one of their stronger, maybe joint venture partners right now. Think of all the times you've failed with them, and they failed you, but you've worked through that, right? Because on the other side of that, it's probably the most value. But we chuckle because people say, well, you can't negotiate unless you trust them. Like, you don't trust anybody to begin with.
Yeah, that's true.
How did you get from there to here? And if you look at it, probably unintentionally and unsystematically, you did some of the same activities that really good negotiators do with intention and with the system.
Well, the funny thing is, the desire to build trust leads to distrust. Let me explain. So someone earlier brought in the used car sales, and I think used car sales is great. I would never buy a new car for my kids. It's a necessary thing.
Right.
I got 6 kids. I will buy used cars. I want someone who is I sense has my best interest
Right.
at heart to sell me a car and not a lemon for my kid, because I want a safe car and reliable for my kid, correct?
Right.
But because there's a lot of books written on, we only do business with people we like and trust, that has led a lot of people to sell that as a product. So they try to build trust versus do good business. So as a result, they try to build trust, but that comes across as the fake smile. They even teach people how to shake hands and smile to have that crow's feet on the eye. So they tell there's a fake smile, and let me teach you how to smile genuinely. But really, that smile genuinely, it's a fake smile.
Right.
So now they have learned. So sales trainers, some of them have learned how to teach people how to do a fake, real smile. So when you smile, make sure you squint your eyes to have that crow's feet. I'm like, holy cow, where are we going now? So now they have turned something fake into something even faker,
Right.
right? But all it is the end goal is to get people to trust them. So it's from the confident handshake to the smile, it becomes manipulation. Okay? So the desire to build trust leads to manipulation. What we propose, what Dan and I propose, is to have a valid mission and purpose of discovery and helping the other party. When you discover that you can no longer deliver value to the other person, let the other person go and invite a no.
I like that, because to me, like, leadership is when people talk about influence, and I've had people in coaching, they say, well, how do we become this person of influence, you know? And they wanted this checklist on how to become a person of influence. To me, it was about adding value. How can I find ways to add value? And what you said right there, Allan, kind of triggered me there. I was thinking, yeah, that's right. What do I do? And I've had those situations where I'm like, I don't know how to add any more value into this situation. And so that's what you're talking about, right? You're giving me tools now to enter into this kind of difficult conversation, and it seems difficult, right? So I can get to this point and give them some power to be able, the ability to say no. I'm just kind of
absolutely, Richard.
Right? Does this make sense?
When you are guided by a valid mission and purpose, you will discover at some point where you are heading is not a place where I can lead you to,
right?
And therefore, a good coach would tell you, "I think we have gone as far as we can together, and we can part ways." It is times like that that builds trust, because the other party now truly senses that you have their best interests at heart. Okay? It's always delivering value, resolving problems, and solving pain for them, removing the pain and solving real problems for them. And there will be a time where actually you cannot help them, and we need to have those difficult conversations. Back to the previous one, because I felt like we're leaving a little piece behind, is likability. I have been to a lot of these clubhouse events. Not a lot, maybe 5 total. And it is because people are talking about, yes, negotiation is important, and it's important to be liked. So they go, how can we make someone else like us? This is very much like the smile and the handshake. So they have gone away from the principle, value-based conversation and good discovery to what can we do to make someone else like us.
Yeah, and that's like cotton candy, right? There's no substance there. So that's what you're getting at there is like, how do I get to this meaningful conversation, to this strong agreement? I'm learning a lot here. I mean, you're shifting my you're exposing a lot of stuff here.
Yes, I'm taking notes as well.
But here's the thing: it's leadership and negotiations have that same, I'm going to call it a challenge, an obstacle. They're both complex human activities. And there's a danger in just wanting to be better at the complex human activity and not doing the hard work. You've already hinted at it, all of us have, about people want the easy button.
Right.
There is no easy button for leadership.
Right.
And there is no easy button for negotiations. The reason why is simple, because both deal with uncooperative human beings, or potentially uncooperative human beings, and make their own decisions. They have, in leadership too, people have the power to say no, right? So the hard work is taking the complex activity, breaking it down to the constituent habits that you have to have, and working on those. And they're all hard. Most of them are very simple. I'll give you one that's close to my heart: listening.
Yep.
You want to be a great leader? You want to be a powerful negotiator? You need to be able to actively listen to people. It's a constituent activity. Most people are put in the work. Most people leave it at a mantra. Oh yeah, listen. Like you just told, like the instruction you gave your client, right? Hey, you need to listen more, talk less, and ask great questions. And Allan and I are like, heck yeah, it's really hard.
Yeah, listen.
But there's techniques. There's principles that you can use to get really good at listening. And anything you're doing to make yourself a better listener is going to be reflected in the complex activities that are overarching, right? Leadership and negotiation.
Can we talk
but
about?
Very few people want to break it down and work at it.
Yeah, I agree with you. Can we talk about some of those tactics on the listening? I'm really interested in that because it's something I'm very passionate about, and particularly the last 5 years have really been top of mind and top of heart for me. So what are some of those tactics? How can we become a better listener, right?
Well, so I'm going to just give away the whole farm here. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's great.
We're not asking you to give it away if you're under duress, though. This is only volunteer, right?
Only volunteer.
We want a strong agreement here. We don't want you to give away the farm and then take it back.
It's the right thing to do.
Okay, good.
That just made you so likable, Dan. Just so
I know, right? Do you see the crocodile smile there? So we have a wealth Like there is a legacy of listening that's handed down to us for free. So I want to be really clear. I didn't come up with any of this. But when you look at Carl Rogers, he was a psychologist in America, did a lot of work with industry. And then you look at Gary Nesner from the FBI, applying that, pulling that into police crisis hostage negotiations. There's 8 active listening techniques that have been developed from those philosophies from that work. And that's what any crisis negotiator in America who gets trained is likely going to be trained in these 8 active listening skills. So, and I know there's not time on the podcast to go through all of them, but when you look at those 8, like that's the activity of a listener. If you're doing these 8 things habitually, you will be a great listener. It's interesting you said that you brought up this issue of like communication's critical, right? Both Allan and I consult with firms, and Allan will hopefully he'll confirm with me. I get pulled in because leaders tell me, hey, we've got a communication problem, or my people aren't communicating with me, or they're not communicating with each other. And whenever I do my discovery with them, I find out, good news, it's not that they're not talking. Like they can all talk really well, right? They're not listening. So almost all communication problems are a deficit of listening, not a lack of talking.
Right.
So that's what is interesting. So you got to diagnose it, right? Well, communication problems, usually listening problems. And when I look at the listening, it's because we're not doing those 8 habits. One of which you already mentioned was, we call it open-ended questions, but really it's asking good questions,
right?
Proper question selection. For listening, almost always open-ended questions are better for capturing a story, but there are also really good uses for closed-ended questions too. That often gets lost. I see it a lot on LinkedIn. People always ask open-ended questions. Like, well, unless you want to clarify, confirm, or construct a decision, then you might want to close-ended question. In negotiation, closed-ended questions become very valuable because decision-making is so much a part of it. So.
Yeah,
that's just one area of listening that's really critical, and we're not that great at, societally speaking.
Yeah, the power of open-ended questions. I've certainly gained a lot of traction on that in my personal relationships, and certainly with my coaching practice. But certainly in my personal relationships, trying to get somewhere with well, tell me more. What do you mean about that? Just asking the who, what, where, when, why can go a long way. But yeah, that's something I hadn't really thought about. The sprinkling of the closed-end questions and when's the appropriate time for that. Right.
Yeah, and just give us an example.
And I think too is, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. Just give an example of what you're talking about, I guess, so we can fully understand that. When you say sprinkle in, so give us an example, either a real example or just a lifetime example. How would that work? Or I guess how do you coach that?
Yeah. Let me take common wisdom often's not. It's either not wisdom or it's that common. So. One thing so questions are like bigger now. People are really starting to recognize that maybe they don't ask great questions and they want to ask better questions. And so like the 30,000 foot view, in the airliner looking down at the earth, listening is, about questions. And so therefore we need to ask all kinds of open-ended questions. Great. So then you pull you dive down a little bit, and now you're in the area. You guys have already brought up like the interrogatives. Like usually that's kind of like the first stop as you get better at questions. So you realize, oh my gosh, the who, the what, the when, the where, the how, and then the why. If I knew all that, man, we could come to a strong agreement for us. Or, wow, our culture would be on track, right? If we knew that as a leader. And that's great. And then as a practitioner for me, I get to ask people questions under pretty intense circumstances. And what you do, you learn really quickly, don't ask why. But then you go to LinkedIn and all of the influencers like, it's about the why, find your why. It's all about why. And I'm like, dude, why is super dangerous. I'll give you an example.
Yeah, I was gonna say, why is that?
Expand on that. Right?
why is that, Dan? Right.
And when I tell you this, you're gonna be like, oh, I already knew that. I'm like, yeah, but here you are running around in your culture and asking people why. All right, so here's the example. I have 6 kids too. So do you guys have kids?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, this is gonna be great. You'll get it. So your 3-year-old is excited to see you when you come home from work, right? And they're at the end of the hallway, and they have 2 Sharpies. How did they get the Sharpies? There was a failure somewhere. There were many mistakes were made.
Right.
They have 2 Sharpies with the lids off.
I think I've lived this.
And it's
we'll see where
run
it goes.
to see daddy, 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 daddy. They put their arms out, and they've got the Sharpie on each wall. All the way down the wall. to get their hug. And then you, as a dad, ask a dad question. Why did you do that? First of all, it's not a question, it's a statement. And secondly, you really don't want to know why. But as toddlers, we've all had those experiences of people asking why we did things that were wrong when they were angry. And that carries forward because we still ask employees why questions when it's a statement and we don't want to know why. And very, very quickly, why now has a loaded connotation of it's not an inquiry into the reasons why we chose. It is a statement of don't do that, it makes me angry. And when you're talking to somebody about to jump off a building and you're like, hey, why are you going to jump off the building? They hear it.
Yeah.
And
Interesting.
when you tell an employee, why didn't you do what I asked you to do? It's not a question. There's a question mark at the end, but they and you and everyone here on this podcast knows it's not a question.
Interesting.
And so therefore, it won't be treated like a question. It's an invitation for what? For argument. That's what it becomes.
Yeah.
That's why is dangerous. Now, so that's 15,000 feet, right? And then Allan's like, he's antsy over there. Allan, once you get down and you're crop dusting, like you're in the weeds, being a practitioner, Allan, can we ask why?
You can ask why. It's probably one of the most powerful questions you can ask, but it's all about, we call it, we don't really focus so much about helping create trust as much as creating the environment for our counterpart to feel safe in having this conversation or negotiation. I'm going to go back in a little bit about what Dan said earlier. It's being a good listener is a tactical behavior. Asking good questions should be based on good strategy. If you ask the wrong questions, you discover nothing. So asking good questions needs to be ideally planned way ahead what it is that you want to discover. The danger about questions is when, in the past, a lot of salespeople just go in and show up and throw up. And then a lot of salespeople smarten up, and the best salespeople say it's about asking questions. And now I'm even seeing books where they go, he who asks the most questions win. Right? He who asks the most questions win. You got to out-question your counterparty. I'm like, As someone who studies conflict analysis and resolution, questioning can become interrogation. Interrogation accompanies physical torture. And when you ask someone a lot of questions, one after the other, like a rapid fire, people feel trapped. And what happened is they will lie to you because
They want to get out of it.
they want to get out of it. And if they told you something true, even if they told you something true because it's under duress, they experience something called self-betrayal. And this self-betrayal creates remorse and buyer's remorse and ghosting. When good salespeople, not great, ask a lot of good questions one after the other, and they found discovery. We know exactly what the pain it is that they have, and now we can apply pressure, and then they ghosted us. How come? The other side did no longer felt safe working with this person because they were interrogated. They don't actually say that I was interrogated.
Right.
They just know that, wow,
They feel it.
while being with Dan, he's such a good questioner. I told him everything I don't even want to reveal. And now I have a regret. I told too much. And I have a sense of self-betrayal. And now they go quiet. So asking too much questions can be quite dangerous.
It's kind of like the phenomena you see where sometimes when they're questioning somebody for an alleged crime or something like that, and people eventually just admit guilt even though they didn't do it, right? Because they wanted to get out of that interrogation.
False confessions.
Yeah,
Which
false
seems
confession.
weird, right?
Yeah.
But it happens, yeah.
So there's something that Dan talked about in his book, and it's golden, that I'm surprised not more people talk about it, is the ability to let someone tell their story. Storytelling. not interrogation. It's a very different intention.
Is that always my goal? Is to get somebody to? I mean, I love the power of. I see the power of it. But is that always my goal in this negotiation, to get a strong agreement, to get them to tell their story? Is that always an objective?
It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. In different developments of that negotiation, maybe not. Right? If it's at the end and we're just fine-tuning logistics and we really do just need data and we've already formed a safe environment to tell the truth, we've already discovered how this is going to be structured, maybe not. But usually in the beginning, the power of narrative for human beings to form connections should not be underestimated.
Yeah.
The difference between interrogation and storytelling is interrogation is transactional, and it's what I want to know, and you're going to tell me. And you're going to tell me in the order that I want it, right? And I might even cut you off and move to the next question when I have what I need.
Right.
Who's in control?
The person, the questioner, right?
Yeah.
And so if we're in this negotiation, and you're getting me to tell a story, what is the benefits of that? I mean, how does that move the ball forward? What are the benefits for me? Yeah,
who's in control in a storytelling situation?
The storyteller.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. And when you're in control, what do you feel?
I feel empowered, and I feel like I trust you.
Right. The trust. That was what I was going to say. Yeah.
Yeah. And what's the funny thing is you really are in control, and you really should feel safe. Because if all I did was invite your story, the limit of my questions was just to tell you the kind of story I'd love to hear and invite you to tell it. And by the way, it starts in like fits and jerks, because we're so used to people interrupting us and one-upping us and like taking back the storytelling stick before it's time. But once people get in the flow and they realize you're actually here for the story, they tell you amazing stories. And in the process, by the way, they begin to feel safe. They tell you more than they tell other people, but they don't do it because they were interrogated. This is the key. They did it because they want to.
Right, they did it because they want
consent.
to.
And at the end, they don't feel remorse at all. They're really appreciative because you did what 99% of the population probably didn't do in that situation. You didn't interrupt and you didn't hijack it.
Right. And as as you're talking, and loneliness, they say, is at an all-time high. COVID just exacerbated that. Yeah. Suicide, loneliness, feeling of isolation. They said, I heard some quote, I don't know if it was in our podcast or somewhere else, that said, 5 years ago, if you ask how many friends somebody has that they feel like they could call at the middle of the night with a serious problem, it was 3, and currently it's 0 for a lot of like millennials, younger people. And so when you're talking, about storytelling and just allowing people to actually tell their stories, I think people just they feel lonely because there's not even a space for that. There's like nobody even knows how to provide that space of, hey, you can tell me what is actually going on with you versus I can only handle so much, or at some point, to your point, I've got what I need to move on now, or I'm cutting them off. I mean, or they just they start dominating. I see this a lot, right? Where somebody's telling a story and then the other person kind of tries to one-up them, as you said, right? And so they tell a bigger story versus just letting the story be the story and letting it get kind of let all the air out of it, right? I mean, if there's a story there and there's holding a lot of tension, a lot of pressure, and a lot of anxiety around it, just let the air out. Just give them that space, right?
Right. So what's the interesting thing is, so why wouldn't a used car salesman do this?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question.
The answer is, I've bought cars from people that did.
Oh, is that right?
And that's why I bought from them.
Right.
They're very few. Very few. It's because they want to be in control. And you have to let that go really to be a powerful story inviter, a collector of human stories. But in the process of people telling you their story, you will see an opportunity for you to serve them with what you do, or you won't. And I think that's the key. Is sometimes once people tell the story, like Alan said, you have to lay it down and say, look, I don't, based on this story, maybe there's more, I don't know. I don't think you need me.
Right.
And in sales, that's crazy because we move them through the pipeline. But as a negotiator, time is precious. And if I can really efficiently figure out that I'm not the person who's supposed to help you, that's a powerful gift I can give you and myself.
And storytelling, I mean,
Let me build on that.
Yeah, go ahead.
When a salesperson has so much on their pipeline and people want to work with them, do they really feel the need to manipulate someone, to like them, trust them, and spend all that energy manipulating an emotion in order to help someone resolve a problem?
Right, yeah.
No, you don't need to. I mean, you're right. I mean, in terms of efficiency, I mean, that's what just kind of hit me there. I was thinking about the power of getting people to tell their story. It's because you said negotiation is time is critical. I mean, that is the most efficient way to kind of get to where we're wanting to be, or at least to a decision point. Are we wasting our time or not, right? It's probably the most efficient way to get there. Is that what I'm hearing? Am I saying that right?
So in physics, and I'll just say one thing, and Alan's going to expand. In physics, what's the shortest distance between 2 points?
Straight line.
That's right. With people, what's the shortest distance between two people connecting?
Stories.
Not a straight line.
No.
It's storytelling.
Yeah.
Right.
Everything that you've retained in your life, the most valuable lessons you've learned, it's because it came and it was an experiential learning. You remember the story of how you learned it, right?
Yeah.
That's why we can go back to high school, and there's probably all these, we joke about what's not taught in high school. There's still lots of great stuff taught in high school, and we forgot it all. But what do you remember? You can remember your favorite movie line for line.
That's true.
That's because it's a story. Like, you remember the stories from high school. You don't remember the curricula.
Well, that's how humans evolved, right? When we sat around a campfire and told stories. I mean, that's how everything happened.
Right.
That's how we evolved as humans. That's how it started.
The earliest impressions we have of the earliest ancestors, what? Storytelling on a cave wall.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's not a mistake. There's a reason for that.
And to be clear, I actually don't have anything against car salesmen because I'm probably the only actual certified car salesman in the room.
That's right.
Out of college, I sold cars. I was very good at it. I enjoyed it. So I want to be clear. I'm not anti-car sales.
We love you. We love you guys and gals too.
Yeah, exactly. So yes, I went through the training, and it was a great sales training. So yes, I don't want to get hate mail.
No, I got a question for you then. Can we flip it?
Yeah,
okay? Alan, can we flip the tables here? Okay. As a used car salesman, the system and the process and the principles and the techniques and the stratagems that you were taught. Okay.
Right. Mm-hmm.
What are the limits of implementation? In other words, would you take that whole system and go home and run your household that way?
Gosh,
that's how you get a deal with your wife.
Yeah.
Deals with your kids.
Yeah. There were parts of it that were very. I found effective communication was the key, right? If you actually take the time. Now, this has been a while back. I'm not going to say how many decades, but I will say it's in decades, not years. And so I would say that it was the very beginning of my ability to effectively communicate because that's what they taught us. Really, if you were really good, it was just effective communication. And I honestly never felt like I was a salesperson. I was just helping somebody find what they wanted. Right. It was never about, I've got to sell them this car. It was more about, okay, what do they actually want? Do we have that or not have that? And if we do, great. Let me go explain what it is and how it works. So, but the communication I learned in that was very helpful. That's good. For me personally, I'm sure not everybody saw it the same way and I can say that I really screwed up almost all the communication from that point forward in any relationship I was in personally. So I would say, I don't know how I would have applied it to my household at that point, but I think the biggest part of it was effective listening, right? It's just listening to what somebody actually was saying versus just trying to sell them what you had. And then to your point, just saying, hey, we don't actually have that here, right? I can search, I can do this, or I can do that, but we don't, if I'm at a Chevy store, we don't sell Fords, right? So it's pretty quick. If you came to buy a Ford truck, I really can't help you here. I can show you this one, but it's not a Ford.
Right.
It's funny you say that, but I've been to like used car lots with my kids, and sometimes the first question they ask, what's your budget, right? One of the first questions, what's your budget?
Yeah, horrible question.
And then it's like, what car are you looking for? And then they go, we don't have that car, but we have another car that will fit your budget.
Right.
And the whole time I'm thinking, that's not the car I want.
right.
And they're not listening. I do not, right? And so it's about, it goes back to what Dan and you're talking about, storytelling. Every culture. I was born in Hong Kong. I grew up in West Africa. I came over here and live in Appalachia. Guess what? In every culture, when people want to tell you something or teach you something, storytelling.
Yeah.
Storytelling across cultures. It's the best and most effective way to teach children. And we learn by listening to stories. Mm-hmm. And so go back to what Dan said earlier about working with leaders, and that was one of the themes you're talking about with leaders. So how does storytelling how do we connect that dot to leaders? I think leaders need to be better at listening for stories and inviting them and expanding on them and digging in. And what I have found working with a lot of leaders that have conflict, whether it's between the CEO or the COO, and there's mutiny going on and this thread of rumbling of disputes, is because one party doesn't feel heard. And you can say, well, they want to tell the story. And when I get involved, you know what happens? Initially, they will repeat the story over and over and over again. Do you know why?
Because they haven't been heard.
They have never been heard. So after a while, after listening, there's a time where I have to end it because we have to move forward. But I will listen to the story and it will go like this. It will be, well, you have to nurture the story and go, I want to listen to your story. And I summarize it and I go, whenever you're ready, but only when you're comfortable, we can talk about moving forward. And you hear a sigh of relief. I'm ready now. But until they feel that they have been heard, talking about the solution and trying to be efficient is not effective. You have to let them tell this story. They have to feel like they have been heard. And the reason they repeat themselves over and over again is because internally in their company or whatever the culture is, they have not been heard. So that's why someone outside needs to come in. But I'm not a psychologist, so I'm not going to sit on the couch and listen to you all day for the next 2 years. We do have to move forward, but I have to trigger that in the mindset, because if I don't, they're going to go around in a circle. So I have to summarize it and tell them, I've heard your story. This is what you've told me. This is how it's affected you. This is how it's impacted you. Seems like these are the emotions you're feeling. And when they sense that I have heard this story, and I go, whenever you're comfortable, we will talk about how we're going to move forward. And you hear them, sometimes they'll say, I need 2 more sessions so that I can talk about this, then I will be ready to move forward. They know they're not ready to move forward until I've heard them completely.
I love this aspect of leadership. I mean, this touches me deeply because for the longest time, and seeing it in the Marine Corps and seeing it in the corporate arena that I worked in there, I do think what's needed so much in leadership, I think, and what I love about what you guys are talking about is that it's the thing that is missing, I think, in leadership for most people is the compassionate side of leadership, which I think the keys to unlocking that are authenticity, transparency, and vulnerability. And everything you're talking about here, to pass the storytelling stick, to do all this, to get to what you're talking about, takes a tremendous amount of authenticity, transparency, and vulnerability. Things that we kind of suck at as human beings for whatever reason, right? We hold things close to our chest. But man, if you can unlock that, what I'm sensing happens when you get people to tell your story, that they're heard. There's a lot of authenticity. There's a lot of opening of the kimono, exposing the heart, right? And that's where the real power lies. Anyway, that's just thought up.
So this is something that my mentor taught me a lot, until his passing in 2014, is the right to say no. But people mistake his book. It's called Starting with No. It's a book on negotiation. But people think when they read that book, it's about me saying no to my counterparty. But really, it's about inviting the other person to tell me no. It's about listening for no. It's about inviting that and embracing and being very comfortable with no, so that the person can feel like they can reject the direction the story's going, where if you are leading it or whether you are going in a direction that they go, this is not where I wanted to go. If they feel safe telling you that, they will reveal more information. And that information usually is what we use to build strong agreements. Example, a lot of clients who ask me to come in, they'll just say, we need you to come in and help our sales team because we've hired six sales consultants and things that doesn't seem to be changing. So we think negotiation may be the magic bullet. So you go in, and when they realize that there's improvement, guess what? They actually get me involved. we have disputes between multiple partners. Two partners trying to get the third one out. Then the funny thing is, the third one that's out is now in conspiracy with one of the other ones to get the other. It's like a 3-ring circus.
Palace intrigue.
It is insane. That was the reason. But they wanted to know, does the stuff that I teach, on Dan Teach, does it work? Then they're going to reveal the kimono and go, this is the pain that we're really feeling.
Right.
We need to resolve this because until
right.
we resolve this, this company is going to dissolve anyway.
Right.
The sales doesn't really matter. We are ready to go nuclear. Right? So,
And this is where the experience of consulting negotiators comes in. So I don't know, somehow this has become a podcast about questions. So, questions are great. And now storytelling is the best answer, but now turn it back to negotiations. Negotiations means, how do I interpret the story, and how do I handle the answer so I can make better decisions, and so that we can continue to develop this agreement and make it strong. And one of the first things you learn as a good negotiator is what people tell you is the truth is not often the truth.
Right.
The thing they think they need help with, or the thing they tell you they need help with, is almost always not that simple. And in fact, we often come into companies because they say they want client-facing help, but it's because the underlying issue that's creating all the dysfunction is internal cultural problems. And we can negotiate that.
but it's not because they're lying to us.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you.
They're lying to themselves.
Is it? It's because their perception has become the perception has become the reality, and they haven't done the work to kind of peel back what the truth is. And it's not intentional deceit, right?
They don't even, sometimes they're not doing it on purpose. It's almost like it's a complex human problem at a company. We have problems with our customers. Our salespeople are not able to maximize profits or close as many deals as we want. So we think Dan and Allan can come in and help. Then they go, we also have a procurement problems. We have suppliers that are gouging us. How do we know that we are being charged a reasonable rate? But we need their services, and if without that, we may be in trouble, right? The next minute ago, we have customers that are firing us, and they're suing us, and we have suppliers and customers suing us at the same time over the same deal. What do we do? So all those are real, but then at that point they fail to see that internally their people do not know how to resolve conflicts. So they all get escalated to the CEO level or the COO, whoever it is. The customer-facing tactical team of account managers do not know how to resolve conflicts, build agreements, build strong agreements that don't fall apart. So when there's an issue, it gets escalated, right? And so all these are actually internal problems, but they manifest, or the symptom is we have a sales problem, we have a procurement problem, we have a retention problem, we have a customer service problem, we have all these problems, but internally they have failed to build strong agreements using good communication and have strong foundation on principles and values and how to say what you say and mean it, and how to invite stories and ask good questions and be a good listener. So it is not a tactical thing. So it irks Dan and I when we see all these negotiation books on these 3 tactics will solve all your negotiation problems. Because it doesn't. They end up coming to Dan and I and go, we read this book and it's still not working. What is going on? So we are solving other people's problems that are created by other negotiation books.
It's elegant. It's really elegant. Maybe we're colluding. Maybe they're sending us all their clients and we're sending them there. No, that's not true. On a granular level, I want everybody to really be able to grab what Allan's saying. I took that client. Guy said he needed help with his closing rate. Great. And again, he's been through sales training and he's, all that. And so what are they presenting? External problem. Our clients, it seems like the problem's with the clients. They're just not signing this best deal we've offered them, right? And we get in there and well, describe to me the sales process you use. He's like, well, everything goes great, but at the end they don't. So I'm like, I know. Just talk to me like I'm 5. Start me at the beginning of the funnel. And he goes through and he's like, and then we show him the slide deck. And I'm like, stop. Show me the slide deck. 60 slides.
Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
my Lord.
And I said, here's why you can't close. He's like, but this isn't at the closing. This is in the prospecting. I'm like, I know. I was like, why do you have to do that? He's like, it's corporate. It's required. I'm like, aha. Internal problem manifesting with external KPI. It is the bane of almost every sales team we've worked with.
Yeah, that is so
is
true.
we've set up a system that we think's great. It's just the only problem is the client doesn't. And I'm like, what? So what if you didn't show these 60 slides? He's like, well, I probably, my manager says I have to. I'm like, stop. That's what that's the first negotiation is with your manager about this. And it went very well because the manager's not an idiot.
Right.
And when presented with a great discovery session and then a proposal, right, there's strong agreement. Hey, you're allowed to modify the slide deck when it makes sense for that particular prospect. And so once he started doing that, guess what happened to his closing rate? Because if I show you 60 slides, that's like a 60-question interrogation.
Yeah,
Who's in
right.
control?
It's just too
It's
much.
the same thing.
Yeah, it's the exact same thing. So that's why I say Allan and I really, I think what separates us from a lot of people in our field is that we understand and recognize dynamics because we're practitioners. So when people tell us the story, we're like, let me ask a few more questions because I think I know where we need to start. I don't know where we're going to end, but I think I know where we need to start. And that is that is the skill that we try to give our coaching clients. Because once you know where to start, it becomes a string of decisions and problems that we can solve. But why people go overwhelmed and call us is because the emotion and the dynamics are so convoluted and complex. I like to think of it like a cocktail. It's all mixed together and shaken. It's hard to know where to start. It's just when you're dealing with internal cultural problems.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much. My brain is just
Yeah.
racing. And I think that's
for a
the
couple
thing.
hours here.
I mean, look at it. We're almost on it. We're almost at an hour already.
I know.
And I'm like, but I'm sitting
We just
there.
got in.
Where do we start? I mean, obviously, I love this stuff. I mean, I could devour this stuff all day, and I want to learn more. And I just, after talking with you guys, I realized, God, there's so much learning still to do on this whole leadership front. And I consider myself a leadership junkie, but this whole piece of it, because it is about creating strong agreements so we can have healthy relationships. I mean, that is the ultimate goal. That's the ultimate goal of leadership. That's the ultimate goal of me as a husband, as a
Right,
father,
life,
as a
right.
as a friend, as a business partner,
A parent, right?
everything.
Right.
So where do we start? I mean, after talking with this, I mean, what can I do? What can we do? What can the average listener do to get started to make
Dan,
sure?
you want to go first?
OblingerZang.com and sign up. I'm just kidding.
For just
What
$9.95.
do you- it just starts with a decision. One of the few decisions that you can make unilaterally is that I'm going to work on this.
Yeah.
Like, I recognize this is a deficiency.
You just gotta opt
This
in.
is creating problems for me and my loved ones. This is creating problems for me and my organization and my team, who also hopefully are still your loved ones in the true sense of the word love, right? You're sacrificing for them intentionally. And then you need to get a system. I think that's the biggest thing I've seen. The difference between somebody who's using their natural talents, that's one thing. And then the person who decides, hey, this is going to be, I'm making this my craft and I'm going all the way. The way Allan and I look at it, it begins with a spark. For me, it was like the lady on the building that was going to jump. For other people like you being a junkie, right? You started, you realize you were gravitating to, like, this fits me, right? So the sense is the beginning. But the next step's knowledge. Like, right away, you want to study it.
Yep.
And that's great, but it's also dangerous because you really need to move higher, right? And so we say the next level is skill, knowing how to apply that knowledge, doing something with it. And that's good. But under stress, skill falls apart and knowledge flees.
Yeah.
So what we really focus on for our clients is habits.
Yeah.
Stress inoculation, repetition, a diverse experience set, so you can begin to recognize dynamics, right? It's not just repeating the scenario in the wild. It's like, I can apply what I've learned to whatever dynamic thing happens. And then with that, the highest expression for us of a craft is not just habit, it's culture. And that's when a lot of people, like a significant number of people in your organization, have those same habits and values. That's your culture.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that answer because we're
But
always
it begins with a spark.
It does.
And if the
right.
spark was today on the Next Level Method, Dose of Leadership podcast,
Yeah.
that's fantastic. But then what are you going to do about it, Jack? You got to go do something.
And what?
Right?
Well,
so you have to
and what is that?
connect yourself to people that can help you advance up that chain.
Got it.
That's the key.
Well, I think
You're not going to do it on your own.
no.
Right.
Yeah, I think you
not how it
surround.
works.
To answer your question, Matt, I think it's you surround yourself with other people who want to do the same thing, and I think it's shifting your mindset that this isn't like what are the 3-10. Everybody wants the 3-10
Right.
steps to
easy button.
solve the easy button.
Right.
Well, ideally, be one.
Right.
Right. Just one big easy button.
But I think it's
I'll give you one. I'll give you one button.
Yeah.
The one button. The one button for leaders, if they want to just take away from this podcast, is stop thinking like a firefighter,
Yes.
which is tactical.
Yep.
Start thinking like a fire marshal, and you need to have a manageable, scalable system of negotiation or communication that brings about agreement internally. Then all the symptoms that you have with suppliers and customers will slowly diminish.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And realizing it's a lifelong process, right? This
Right.
isn't. It isn't. Yeah. It takes a. To your point, it takes a.
I think I heard Dan say it on some of his other material. It's an art, right? This is an art. This isn't a. This is a craft, an art. It's not something that you're ever going to complete. It's
That's what I'm
It's
about the lifelong process.
It's informed by science. It's
Right.
informed by science, but it's not. It can't. You can't say it's. Science is the study of something,
right.
and that's really valuable. But true scientists know that they don't. Their goal is not to produce anything. Their goal is to form hypotheses and then test them and discover whether it was true or not. And then they leave it up to other people to apply that in the marketplace, right? And we're not true artists because we're working with other people, and they're going to judge our art as well. It's craft is like a blend of art and science, and it's a little bit more art than science. That's why we use the word craft. But if you force me to choose, it'd be more art. Because if I don't produce something valuable as a consulting negotiator, I can't just test the hypotheses and find out using somebody else's workforce. Oh, that was true. Right? Hey, no, it's at the end, Allan and I judge ourselves upon how did we leave that culture?
Yeah.
Did they ask us, did they say, hey, your services are no longer needed because we have built a culture of strong agreements and you've trained our people how to do that in our absence, because that's what we do.
Yeah.
So we can move on to the next client.
Right.
Then that's a success. Yeah.
I love it, man. You guys you've certainly got my wheels spinning, and I'm anxious and hungry to learn more. I really appreciate what you guys are doing. You're hitting on a lot of great stuff. Is there anything? I'm looking at the clock, and I'm like, God, I could talk to you guys for another 3 hours about this stuff. But what is there anything else that we didn't touch upon? Is there anything as we wrap up here, something that we didn't touch upon that we want to make sure gets across?
Well, there's a pressure of that, and so Richard, Matt, Dan, and I are open to come back and just jam with you and just talk about negotiation again. So don't feel the pressure. We have to answer all the questions today.
No, I understand that.
And I would love to do a whole nother segment just on the like family dynamic, friendship, personal relationships. Because for me, all of this kind of, although we've framed it a lot in a business perspective, everyone's a leader. Everyone in life is a leader, right? They're leading themselves by
we all have a leleadership obligation.
We all have leadership obligations, whether we're parents, we're coworkers, even lead up, right? Where if I am I'm leading, I can lead my boss. I watched somebody do it in our organization. She came in, was cleaning equipment. The next thing you know, she's like a joy ambassador at one of the companies I'm involved with, right? Because she just took ownership and started to lead from an authentic place, and that was just doing authentic things. So I would love to come on again and just talk about how does this show up in other areas of our life outside, because for me coming in it was like about negotiation, but leaving this, for me it's really negotiation for me is too small a word or too small of a concept for what we're actually talking about, which is just really great effective communication. Everything you're saying is like, in other ways and other teaching and other stuff that I've read or done, it's like, no, this is actually really, really great stuff for effective communication. Yeah. And for me, negotiation seems like it's a small, the word isn't descriptive enough for what you guys, you're very talented, obviously. I really respect and honor what you guys are doing. And I don't know what to call it, but it's so much bigger than, for me, what I thought negotiation was.
Well, for me, it's the strong agreements to build healthy relationships. I love that.
I love that
kind of definition.
There you go.
Yeah.
Sounds
Strong
like
agreement.
Richard
That's the name of your next book, right?
Right.
We're agreement consultants in relationship.
Relationship and agreement consultants. Yeah.
Look, Matt, totally agree. There's no point in having a business where we're successful, cutting a $1 billion, $2 billion, $5 billion deals, and then your family is falling apart.
Right. Exactly. Yep.
Which, by the way, I get pulled into because family is talking about big deals, and the family dynamics is being torn apart.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's every aspect of our lives, right?
Yep, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
The last executive I coached last week at the end of the week, and I had coached him through all kinds of different deals. It was, I needed to talk to my my sibling about their drug habit.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
And guess which one's going to have more impact for him long term?
Sure.
Throughout his whole life.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep. Definitely.
Yep.
You guys are doing great work. How can people learn more about what you're doing and connect with you guys?
It's funny you should mention that when you talk about you need to surround yourself with people that have that same mindset and goal. Allan, you can tell them about the tribe, I guess.
Yep. Every month on the first Friday, we have a open Q&A where Dan and I will answer any questions of people that join this Q&A. So we can send you that information, the link to it, and they can sign up and come and visit us. It's totally free. It's live. There's no replays, and it's unscripted. It's like a jungle in there. People ask questions, and then we see where it goes. Kind of like today.
A little bit like today.
This is like a Q&A that we have.
Right.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
You guys are doing
We call it
great
the
work.
negotiation tribe. The Q&A is kind of the crown jewel of the free side of it. But people are constantly exchanging information on LinkedIn. Allan and I post almost every day with something about making strong agreements for better relationships. And there's I think we're up to 500-600 people that are involved in this now. And so there's a constant dialogue all around the globe about these same kind of things we talked about today. And so I would invite anybody that, like you said, if your mind's blown and you're like, this is my next step in my leadership development, well, it's free and it can't hurt.
Right.
And there's also options that come out of that in terms of coaching and consulting, but you'll have to ask us about it. We don't really push that very hard.
Sure.
So.
Well, we'll have links to this in the show notes. Go check these guys
Yes.
out. Yeah, we definitely need to have you back on the show. There's so much to explore with you guys. This was so much fun for me. I got a lot out of this.
110%.
Yeah. Thanks for
So
coming.
Dan and I actually chat a little bit before this meeting, and we're going to do something for you that I don't think we've done for any other podcaster, not that I've known recently,
What's that?
is that your listeners, right now when they're listening, some of them are going to have an urgent need. We are willing to extend 5 free discovery calls to chat with them and help them see ways that they can go through whatever urgent negotiation pain they're experiencing right now. Free of charge, no strings attached.
Wow.
I'm going to call you guys later this afternoon. I was going to say, we're going to edit,
we take you up on that?
we're going to edit that out, and we're just going to assume there were 10 clients or
That's
10
right.
people listening.
Yeah.
We're going to take all the sessions. I'm kidding. So yeah, we'll be.
How come this guy sounds exactly like Matt?
This guy sounds like Richard, but he says his name's Bob.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to get all of our problems solved, Richard.
Oh, that's fantastic. But hey,
Love
that's
it.
so generous that we appreciate
Yes,
that.
we really do. Thank you so much.
If there's a link that we can also include in the show notes,
we
we'll
will
make
do.
sure that we'll have that so people can connect with you. And there's our website that people can go to.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Dan.
OblingerZang.com. And I'm sure you guys will drop it in the show notes.
Absolutely.
Yep, we will.
Yeah, check it out. Yep.
All right.
If there's no urgent need and it's a slow burn, there's a lot of resources there. Go check it out.
Great.
All right.
Awesome, guys. You guys are fantastic. Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah. Again, we're blessed, man. It's our pleasure to be here.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the Next Level Method podcast. If you found some value in this, tell somebody about the show. Tell your friends, tell your spouse, tell your kids, let them know all about Next Level Method. And go to nextlevelmethod.com to learn more and join our community. Thanks for tuning in.